Saracen pulled the control stick hard to the right. Her small cargo ship shook as it dropped through the atmosphere of Dracor's Rest. Red warning lights flashed across the dashboard. The engine was failing again. "Come on, baby. Just a little further," she whispered to her ship, the Wanderer's Hope. The moon below was covered in red sand and rocky canyons. It was a trading post, a place where different alien species came to buy and sell goods. Sarah had been here many times before. It was supposed to be a simple supply run. Drop off medical equipment, pick up payment, and head home. But her old ship had other plans. The landing was rough. The ship bounced twice on the hard ground before finally stopping. Sarah sat still for a moment, catching her breath. She was alone out here, miles from the main trading post. She would need to walk there to get repair parts. Sarah grabbed her water pack and stepped outside. The heat hit her immediately. 2 suns hung in the purple sky, baking everything below. She pulled her hat down and started walking toward the nearest canyon. It would provide some shade. The canyon walls rose high on both sides, blocking the worst of the heat. Sarah walked carefully over the loose rocks. She had maybe 2 hours of walking ahead of her. Then she heard it. A small sound like a whimper. Sarah stopped. The sound came again, weaker this time. She moved toward it, climbing over a pile of fallen rocks. That was when she saw it. A creature lay in the shadow of a large boulder. It was small, about the size of a large dog. Its body was covered in scales that should have been bright silver but now looked dull and gray. Wings thin as paper were folded against its sides. Its long neck stretched out on the ground and its eyes were half closed. Sarah's heart skipped. She knew exactly what this was. A Dracoth hatchling, a baby dragon. The Dracoth were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They were huge, intelligent, and extremely dangerous when angry. Everyone knew the most important rule about them: never touch their young. Never. The punishment was death, no questions asked. But this hatchling was dying. Sarah could see it in the way its chest barely moved with each breath. She knelt down slowly, keeping her distance. The creature's tongue hung out, dry and cracked. Its scales had lost their shine. This baby needed water desperately. Sarah looked around. The canyon was completely dry. There had been a solar flare 2 days ago. She had heard about it at the trading post. The flare had caused the temperature to spike, evaporating every bit of water in the area. This hatchling must have been separated from its family. Now it was dying of thirst. She looked at her water pack. She had 3 bottles, enough to get her to the trading post and back with some to spare. But probably not enough for both of them if she gave water to this creature. Sarah bit her lip. Every logical thought told her to walk away. This was not her problem. Interfering could get her killed. The Dracoth would return for their lost hatchling. If they found a human here, they would assume the worst. They would think she hurt it or stole it. The hatchling made that sound again, a weak, pitiful cry. Sarah closed her eyes and cursed under her breath. She could not do it. She could not walk away from a dying child, no matter what species it was. That was not who she was. She moved closer. The hatchling's eyes opened slightly. They were golden, even in their weakened state. Beautiful and intelligent. The creature watched her but did not move. It was too weak to be afraid. "Hey there, little one," Sarah said softly. "I am going to help you. Please do not bite me." She opened her water bottle and carefully tilted it toward the hatchling's mouth. At first, nothing happened. Then the creature's tongue moved slightly, tasting the water. Suddenly, the hatchling's eyes opened wider. It lifted its head just enough to drink. Sarah let the water pour slowly. The hatchling drank desperately, its throat working to swallow. 1 bottle emptied. Then half of another. Sarah watched her water supply disappear but kept pouring. The creature needed it more than she did. Finally, the hatchling stopped drinking. It lowered its head back to the ground, but its eyes were brighter now. Its scales already looked a bit shinier. It made a sound, softer this time, almost like a purr. Sarah sat back on her heels. "You are welcome," she said. She knew she had just made things complicated for herself. Very complicated, but she felt no regret. The hatchling was alive. That was what mattered. Sarah stood up and looked at the sky. She needed to get those repair parts and come back. She could not leave the hatchling alone again. But as she turned to leave, something caught her eye. On the horizon, 3 dark shapes appeared in the sky. They were growing larger, fast ships, huge ships. Sarah's blood went cold. The Dracoth were returning, and she was standing right next to their dying hatchling with an empty water bottle in her hand. This was very, very bad. The ships moved closer, their engines roaring like thunder. Sarah looked down at the hatchling, then at the approaching ships. She could run. She could try to hide, but deep down she knew the truth. There was nowhere to run. The Draketh would find her, and when they did, she would have to face the consequences of breaking their most sacred law. The 3 Draketh ships landed with ground-shaking force. Sand and rocks flew in all directions as the massive vessels touched down around the canyon. Sarah stood frozen, watching as the boarding ramps lowered. The first Draketh to emerge was enormous. It stood at least 20 feet tall on 4 powerful legs. Silver scales covered its body, gleaming in the double sunlight. Its wings were folded against its back, each one large enough to cover Sarah's entire ship. The dragon's eyes, bright gold like the hatchlings, locked onto her immediately. Behind the first came 2 more, equally massive. Their heads were adorned with horns and ridges that spoke of age and power. These were elders, leaders of the clan, and they looked furious. Sarah's hands shook, but she did not run. Running would only make things worse. Instead, she slowly raised her hands, showing she held no weapons. The largest Draketh moved forward. Each step made the ground tremble. When it spoke, its voice was like rolling thunder, speaking in the common galactic language that Sarah understood. "Human, you dare touch our young?" The words were not a question. They were an accusation, a death sentence. "I meant no harm," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "The hatchling was dying. I only gave it water." "You broke our most sacred law," another Draketh growled. "The punishment is death." The largest dragon, clearly the leader, lowered its massive head until its face was level with Sarah. She could feel the heat from its breath. Those golden eyes stared into hers, burning with anger and something else. Pain. This dragon was the hatchling's mother. "You will die, human. But first you will watch as we determine if you poisoned our child with your foreign substances." Sarah's heart sank. Poisoned? She had not thought about that. Human water, human germs. What if she had made things worse? The mother dragon moved past Sarah to her hatchling. The baby dragon lifted its head weakly and made a small chirping sound. The mother's entire demeanor changed instantly. She lowered herself to the ground, gently nuzzling her child. Examining every inch of its small body, Sarah watched, holding her breath. The hatchling seemed better than before. Its eyes were open and alert. Its scales had regained some shine. But would that be enough? The mother dragon turned back to Sarah. "The child lives. But it weakens again. Your water was insufficient. Draketh require specific minerals that your pure water lacks. You have delayed death, not prevented it." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "What does it need?" "Minerals from our homeworld. We have supplies on the ship, but they must be mixed properly. The child is too weak to process them correctly now." The dragon's eyes narrowed. "Because of your interference, its system is confused. Your foreign water has diluted what little mineral reserves remained in its body." The other dragons hissed. One of them stepped forward. "She has doomed the child. Kill her now." "Wait!" Sarah shouted. Her mind raced. There had to be a solution. There was always a solution. What if we could create a bridge? Something to help the hatchling process the minerals? "There is no such thing," the mother dragon said coldly. But Sarah was already thinking. She had read about Draketh biology during her trading runs. They required iron, calcium, sodium, potassium. Wait, those were the same minerals in human blood. Blood plasma had electrolytes, had minerals. A crazy idea formed in her mind. Crazy, and probably impossible. But the hatchling was dying, and she had already broken one rule. What was one more? "I might have a way," Sarah said. She pulled out her emergency medical kit from her belt. Inside was a small blade, sterilized for treating injuries. The dragons watched suspiciously as she opened the kit. "What are you doing, human?" the mother dragon demanded. "Something really stupid," Sarah muttered. She took the blade and pressed it against her wrist, making a small, controlled cut. Red blood welled up immediately. The dragons recoiled, surprised. Sarah quickly grabbed her last water bottle and let several drops of blood fall into it. She swirled the mixture, creating a pale pink liquid. Then she grabbed the mineral powder from her medical kit, the stuff meant for human dehydration, and added that too. Human blood contains many of the same minerals your child needs, Sarah explained quickly. The proteins in blood plasma can help stabilize and transport those minerals. My body has already filtered and balanced these elements. If the hatchling drinks this, it might help bridge the gap until it can process your pure minerals again. The mother dragon stared at her. You would give your own blood to save a creature that is not your kind? Yes, Sarah said simply. There was no other answer. This is madness, one of the other dragons hissed. Human blood in a Draketh? It could kill the child faster. It is already dying, Sarah shot back. This might help. At worst, we are in the same situation we are in now. The mother dragon was silent for a long moment. Finally, she stepped aside. Do it. But know this, human. If my child dies because of this, you will beg for death before I grant it. Sarah nodded and knelt beside the hatchling. She tilted the bottle to its mouth. The baby dragon sniffed once, twice, then began to drink. At first, nothing happened. Then the hatchling's scales began to shimmer. A faint glow appeared beneath them, like light moving through crystal. The glow spread from its throat down through its body. Sarah felt something strange, a pulling sensation in her chest, like an invisible thread connecting her to the hatchling. The feeling grew stronger, warmer. It was not painful, but it was intense, overwhelming. The hatchling's eyes opened fully and locked onto Sarah's. In that moment, something passed between them. Understanding, recognition, bond. The mother dragon gasped. Impossible. The glow intensified, spreading to Sarah's own chest. She looked down and saw a mark forming on her skin, visible through her shirt. A pattern like scales glowing with golden light. The same pattern appeared on the hatchling's chest. The flame bond, one of the elder dragons whispered in awe. The ancient bond. We thought it was only legend. Sarah did not understand what was happening, but she felt it. The hatchling was not just alive. It was connected to her now. She could sense its emotions, its relief, its curiosity, and somehow she knew the hatchling could sense hers too. The mother dragon slowly lowered her head, her anger replaced by shock and something that might have been respect. You have done the incredible, human. You have bonded with a Draketh. This has never happened between species. Never. You are no longer just a stranger who broke our law. You are now something else entirely. Sarah looked at the mark on her chest, then at the hatchling who watched her with bright, intelligent eyes. What does this mean? She asked quietly. The mother dragon's expression was unreadable. It means, human, that your life just became far more complicated. The mother dragon, who introduced herself as matriarch Kelvara, carried the hatchling aboard her ship. Sarah followed, surrounded by the other dragons. She was not a prisoner exactly, but she was definitely not free to leave either. Inside the ship, everything was built to dragon scale. The ceiling soared 40 feet high. The corridors were wide enough for 3 dragons to walk side by side. Sarah felt incredibly small walking through these massive halls. They entered a large chamber. More dragons waited inside. At least 20 of them, all enormous, all powerful. Their scales ranged from silver to gold to deep bronze. Some wore armor marked with symbols Sarah did not recognize. These were warriors, leaders, important members of the clan. A platform stood in the center of the room. Kelvara placed the hatchling there gently. The baby dragon chirped softly, its eyes following Sarah as she was led to stand before the assembly. Clan members, Kelvara's voice boomed through the chamber. We face an unprecedented situation. This human has touched our young, breaking our most sacred law. The punishment should be death. However, something impossible has occurred. The human has formed a flame bond with my daughter. Shocked murmurs rippled through the gathered dragons. Several stood up, their tails lashing in agitation. A large bronze dragon stepped forward. His voice was harsh, angry. This is an abomination. The flame bond is sacred, meant only for Draketh. This creature cannot be allowed to live with such a connection. I agree, another dragon called out. Kill the human and sever the bond. You cannot sever a flame bond, an ancient silver dragon said quietly. She was smaller than the others, her scales pale with age. If the human dies, the hatchling dies. That is the nature of the bond. They are linked now, life to life. The chamber erupted into arguments. Some dragons demanded Sarah's death despite the cost. Others insisted the bond must be honored. Sarah stood silent, her hand unconsciously moving to the glowing mark on her chest. She could feel the hatchling's fear through the bond. The baby dragon was scared by all the loud voices. Peace, Kelvara roared. The chamber fell silent instantly. There is a way to know the truth. The bond allows me to see into the human's mind, to view her memories and intentions. I will do this now. Before Sarah could respond, Kelvara's eyes began to glow. Sarah felt a strange sensation, like someone flipping through the pages of a book inside her head. Memories flooded forward, playing like video she could not control. The dragons watched in silence as Kelvara shared what she saw with the assembly through their own connection. They saw Sarah finding the dying hatchling. They saw her debate with herself, knowing the danger. They saw her choose to help anyway, not because she expected reward, but because she could not abandon a suffering child. They saw her give her water, then her blood, risking her own life without hesitation. They felt her emotions raw and honest. Fear, yes, but also determination and compassion. Most of all, they felt her absolute refusal to let a child die when she had the power to prevent it. When Kelvara withdrew from Sarah's mind, the chamber was silent. Sarah swayed slightly, dizzy from the experience. Several dragons looked troubled. The angry bronze dragon had lowered his head, unwilling to meet anyone's eyes. I have seen the truth, Kelvara announced. This human acted with pure intention. She knew our laws. She understood the risk. She chose to save my daughter anyway, expecting nothing but death as her reward. She demonstrated a value we Draketh pride ourselves on, protecting the young at any cost. The old silver dragon nodded slowly. The human showed honor, true honor, but she is not Draketh. The bronze dragon protested weakly. No, Kelvara agreed. She is something we did not expect. She is something we did not think existed outside our species. She is worthy. Kelvara turned to face Sarah fully. Human, you have bonded with a Draketh hatchling. This bond cannot be broken without death for both of you. By our ancient laws, you must now fulfill the responsibilities of this bond. You must protect the hatchling, guide it and help it grow until it reaches maturity in 5 galactic years. Sarah's eyes widened. 5 years? She had a shipping business to run, contracts to fulfill. But looking at the small dragon on the platform, watching her with those bright golden eyes, she felt the bond pulse warmly in her chest. This was not just an obligation. It was right. It felt like family. I accept, Sarah said clearly. Kelvara closed her eyes briefly as if relieved. Then by the authority given to me as matriarch of the Silver Scale clan, I declare you Flamekin. You are the first non-Draketh to ever receive this honor. You are not one of us by blood, but you are one of us by bond. The hatchling's name is Ashkar, and she is now your responsibility as much as mine. The old silver dragon stepped forward and touched Sarah's forehead with one large claw. Let it be known across the stars. The human Sarah Chen is Flamekin. To harm her is to harm the clan. To honor her is to honor us. This is our decree. Most of the dragons bowed their heads in acceptance, but not all. Sarah noticed several dragons leaving the chamber, their tails lashing in anger. The bronze dragon was among them. Kelvara noticed too. Her eyes narrowed. There will be resistance to this decision. Some will see you as a threat to our traditions. Be careful, Sarah Chen. You have earned respect today, but you have also made enemies. Sarah nodded. She understood. She had just stepped into a world of politics and ancient traditions that she barely understood. But when Ashkar chirped and reached out with one small claw, Sarah walked forward without hesitation and placed her hand against it. The bond warmed, and Sarah felt the hatchling's emotions clearly now. Joy, safety, love. Whatever came next, they would face it together. But as Sarah left the chamber with Ashkar sleeping in her arms, she did not see the dark figure watching from the shadows. War Chief Mordax, leader of the rival clan, had witnessed everything through a communication channel. His eyes glowed with anger. A human with a flame bond, he hissed to himself. This cannot stand. If other species learn they can bond with Dracoth, our power, our uniqueness means nothing. This human must be tested, and she must fail. He opened a communication channel to his ship. Prepare the challenge protocols. The human claims to be Flamekin? Then she must prove it. 3 trials, as per ancient law, and we will make certain she cannot possibly win. Mordax smiled coldly. The human saved one hatchling. Let us see if she can save herself. Sarah woke to alarms blaring through the ship. She jumped from the bed in the quarters Kelvara had given her. Ashkar chirped an alarm from her sleeping cushion nearby. Through the bond, Sarah felt the hatchling's confusion and fear. It is okay, Sarah said softly, scooping up the small dragon. I am here. Kelvara burst into the room moments later. Her expression was grim. We have received a formal challenge. War Chief Mordax of the Bronze Talon clan demands you prove your worth as Flamekin. Sarah's heart sank. What kind of challenge? The 3 trials. Ancient tests designed to prove a warrior's strength, courage, and wisdom. They are meant for Dracoth, not humans. Kelvara's tail lashed in anger. Mordax knows this. He wants you to fail. If you do, the bond will be declared invalid. Both you and Ashkar will be executed as abominations. Can I refuse? No. By accepting the title of Flamekin, you accepted all responsibilities and challenges that come with it. Refusal means automatic forfeiture. The trials begin in 7 days. Sarah sat down heavily on the bed, still holding Ashkar. 7 days to prepare for tests designed for creatures 10 times her size and strength. It seemed impossible. Then I need to train, Sarah said firmly. Will you help me? Kelvara studied her for a long moment. Then something like a smile crossed her dragon features. You do not cry or beg. You ask to train. Yes, human. I will help you. But you must understand, these trials are nearly impossible for you. We must be smart, not just strong. For the next 6 days, Sarah trained harder than she had ever trained in her life. Kelvara taught her about Dracoth combat philosophy. It was not just about power, though power mattered. It was about strategy, about understanding your opponent, about using everything available to you. Humans are weak compared to Dracoth, Kelvara said bluntly during one training session. But you have advantages we lack. Your size allows you to move in ways we cannot. Your hands can manipulate tools we cannot use. Your species thinks differently, finds solutions we would never consider. Sarah practiced day and night. She studied recordings of past trials. She learned about Dracoth honor codes and competition rules, and slowly ideas began to form. But it was Ashkar who provided the most help. The bond between them grew stronger each day. Sarah began to understand things she should not know, how to read dragon body language, how their society worked, how they thought. It was like having a direct connection to millions of years of Dracoth instinct and knowledge, and Ashkar learned from Sarah too. The hatchling watched human videos Sarah showed her, videos of Earth history, of human achievements, of people working together to solve impossible problems. Ashkar was fascinated. Your people are strange, the hatchling said one evening. She had learned to speak through the bond, her thoughts forming words in Sarah's mind. You are small and soft, but you never give up. Even when something is impossible, you try anyway. Why? Sarah smiled. Because sometimes impossible just means nobody has figured it out yet. Humans are stubborn like that. On the 7th day, Sarah stood in a massive arena built on the surface of Dracor's Rest. Thousands of dragons surrounded the space, perched on rocks and cliff sides. They had come from across the sector to watch. This was history being made one way or another. Mordax stood on the opposite side of the arena. He was massive even for a Dracoth. His bronze scales were scarred from countless battles. His eyes held only contempt as he looked at Sarah. Human. His voice boomed across the arena. You claim to be Flamekin. You claim to be worthy of bonding with a Dracoth. Today you will prove this claim or die trying. Are you prepared? Sarah stood straight, trying not to show her fear. Ashkar was safe with Kelvara in the viewing area. Sarah could feel the hatchling's worry through the bond. She sent back feelings of determination and love. I am prepared, Sarah called out. Then let the first trial begin, the trial of strength. A section of the arena floor opened. A massive stone block rose from below. It was easily 20 feet tall and covered in ancient symbols. 2 Dracoth warriors stepped forward and with great effort lifted the stone. They held it at shoulder height for 10 seconds, then lowered it. The crowd roared approval. This stone weighs 50,000 pounds, Mordax announced. To pass the trial, you must lift it to the height those warriors showed and hold it for 10 seconds. Fail and you die. Sarah looked at the stone. 50,000 pounds. 25 tons. It was absurd. Impossible. A human could not lift that much. Even with mechanical assistance, she would need equipment she did not have. She heard whispers from the crowd. Some dragons laughed. This was exactly what Mordax wanted. To humiliate her before killing her, but Sarah was not alone. She caught the eye of a human trader in the crowd. Marcus. She had met him once at the trading post. She made a gesture, a simple human hand signal. Marcus's eyes widened in understanding. He nodded and disappeared into the crowd. I request a 1-hour preparation period, Sarah called out. As is my right under trial law, Mordax sneered. Granted. 1 hour to accept your death, human. Sarah ignored him and ran to the edge of the arena. Marcus met her there with 3 other human traders. They huddled together and Sarah explained her plan quickly. It is crazy, Marcus said when she finished. Do you have a better idea? Sarah asked. Marcus grinned. Nope, let us make history. For the next hour, Sarah and the humans worked frantically. They cannibalized equipment from their ships, hydraulic systems, metal cables, support struts. They assembled everything at the base of the stone. The dragons watched in confusion. What were these small creatures doing? When the hour ended, Sarah stood before the stone again. Behind it, hidden from Mordax's view, was a complex system of levers, pulleys, and hydraulics. The other humans stood ready at key positions. Are you ready to attempt the trial? Mordax demanded. Yes, Sarah said. She placed her hands on the stone. Then she nodded to the others. In perfect synchronization, they activated the system. The hydraulics engaged. The levers multiplied the force. The pulleys distributed the weight. The stone moved. It rose slowly, inch by inch. The crowd gasped. Sarah strained, her muscles screaming, but the mechanical system did most of the work. The stone reached the required height. Sarah held it there, counting in her head. 10 seconds felt like forever. Her arms shook. The equipment groaned under the strain. But she held it. When 10 seconds passed, Sarah let the stone down gently. She turned to face Mordax, breathing hard but smiling. Trial complete, she said. The crowd erupted. Some dragons roared in approval. Others in anger. Mordax's eyes blazed with fury. You cheated, he bellowed. You used tools. That is not strength. Sarah walked forward until she stood directly before the massive war chief. She had to tilt her head back to look at his face, but her voice was strong and clear. You said I had to lift the stone. You never said how. Humans do not rely on strength alone. We build, we create, we work together. That is our strength. If you wanted a trial of pure muscle, you should have specified that. The old silver dragon who had blessed Sarah stepped forward. The human is correct. The trial rules do not prohibit tools or assistance. The stone was lifted to the required height and held for the required time. The trial is passed. Mordax's roar shook the arena, but he could not argue with the ruling. The trial was complete. Sarah had passed the first test. But 2 more remained, and she knew Mordax would make them even harder. This was just the beginning. Sarah barely had time to catch her breath before Mordax announced the second trial. His rage at her passing the first test was obvious. His tail lashed back and forth and smoke curled from his nostrils. The second trial. The trial of courage, Mordax declared. Prepare the field. The arena floor split apart in multiple places. Columns of pure energy shot upward, creating a grid of plasma fire. The columns moved in patterns, shifting and changing every few seconds. The heat was intense even from where Sarah stood. She could feel it on her face like standing too close to a furnace. You must cross from this side to the other, Mordax explained. The plasma will burn you to ash if you touch it. You have 1 chance. Fail and you die. Begin when ready. Sarah studied the field. The plasma columns moved in what seemed like random patterns. But she was a pilot. She understood timing and movement. She watched carefully, counting in her head. 3 columns. 5 seconds between movements. A rhythm. She closed her eyes and reached out through the bond to Ashkar. The hatchling's mind touched hers, and suddenly Sarah could sense the heat patterns better. Dragons could sense temperature changes instinctively. Through Ashkar, Sarah borrowed that ability. She opened her eyes and saw the field differently now, not random at all. A pattern, predictable if you knew what to look for. I am ready, Sarah said. She stepped onto the field. Immediately, a plasma column shot up inches from her leg. The heat was incredible. Sarah forced herself to move forward. Count, wait, move. Another column appeared where she had just been standing. Step by step, Sarah navigated the deadly maze. Her pilot training helped. She was used to calculating trajectories and timing, but halfway across something changed. The columns began moving faster. The pattern shifted. Mordax had changed the rules. Sarah stumbled, nearly falling into a plasma stream. She rolled to the side, feeling the heat singe her hair. The crowd gasped. This was not supposed to happen. But Mordax smiled cruelly. He was breaking the rules and no one could prove it. Sarah's arm brushed against a column. Pain exploded through her body. She bit back a scream. The smell of burnt flesh filled her nose. But she kept moving. She had to. Ashkar needed her. 3 more columns. 2 more. 1. Sarah threw herself forward, clearing the final plasma stream by inches. She collapsed on the other side, gasping for air. Her left arm was badly burned. The pain was overwhelming. But she was alive. She had crossed. The crowd roared louder than before. Even some of Mordax's own clan members looked impressed. The old silver dragon stepped forward again. Trial passed, she announced. Though I note the pattern changed mid-trial, which is against protocol. Mordax growled but said nothing. Sarah struggled to her feet, cradling her injured arm. Kelvara flew down immediately with medical supplies. As she treated Sarah's burns, she whispered, "You should withdraw. The final trial is the hardest. Mordax will not play fair." "I cannot withdraw," Sarah whispered back. "Ashkar is counting on me." Through the bond, she felt the hatchling's love and fear. Ashkar did not want her to get hurt. But they both knew there was no other choice. When Sarah's arm was bandaged, she stood again. "I am ready for the final trial." Mordax's smile was cold. "The trial of wisdom. This will test not your body, human, but your mind and your heart." The arena floor shifted once more. 2 pits appeared, separated by 100 feet. Above each pit, cages descended from the ceiling. In one cage was Ashkar. In the other were 5 Draketh younglings, all around the same age as Ashkar. Sarah's blood went cold. "A cave-in has occurred," Mordax announced. "These 2 groups are trapped. You have equipment to save one group. Only one. The cave will collapse in 5 minutes, killing whichever group you do not choose. Save the bonded hatchling or save the 5 younglings, choose." The crowd fell silent. This was cruel even by trial standards. But it was legal. The trial of wisdom was meant to test impossible choices. Sarah looked at Ashkar. The hatchling stared back at her, eyes wide. Through the bond, Sarah felt Ashkar's thoughts clearly. Save the others. Save them. But if Sarah saved the younglings, Ashkar would die. And if Ashkar died, the bond would kill Sarah too. Either way, Sarah lost. The correct Draketh answer was obvious. Save the 5. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. Any Draketh would make that choice. It was logical. It was honorable, but Sarah was human. And humans did not accept no-win scenarios. She turned to face Mordax. "I refuse the premise of your question. You must choose," Mordax snarled. "Those are the rules." "No," Sarah said loudly. "You said I could save one group with the equipment available. You never said I had to use the equipment the way you intended." She ran to her ship, which was parked at the arena's edge. The other human traders realized what she was doing and ran to help. Together they activated the ship's tractor beam, the same technology used for loading cargo. "What are you doing?" Mordax roared. Sarah did not answer. She aimed the tractor beam at the cage holding the younglings and activated it. The beam locked onto the cage and lifted it clear of the pit. At the same time, Marcus ran with cutting torches to the second cage where Ashkar was trapped. "You cannot do that," Mordax bellowed. "You can only save one." "I am saving both," Sarah shouted back. She used the ship's explosives, meant for emergency rock clearing, to blast new support beams into the collapsing cave simulation. The structure stabilized. Marcus cut through the cage bars and freed Ashkar. The hatchling flew straight to Sarah, who caught her with her good arm. The 5 younglings were lowered to safety by the tractor beam. Sarah stood in the center of the arena, holding Ashkar, both groups saved. She turned to face Mordax. "You wanted a human answer?" Sarah said, her voice carrying across the silent arena. "Humans do not accept impossible choices. When faced with a no-win scenario, we change the rules. We find the third option. We refuse to let anyone die if there is any other way. That is our wisdom." The crowd exploded into chaos. Dragons roared, some in approval, many in shock. The old silver dragon stepped forward, and this time she was smiling. "The trial is complete," she announced. The human was told to save one group with the available equipment. She did not break that rule. She simply used the equipment in a way we did not anticipate. This is wisdom. This is intelligence. This is exactly what Flamekin should demonstrate. Even Mordax's own clan members were nodding. Some looked ashamed. They had been ready to watch a human sacrifice herself or an innocent hatchling, all to prove a point about tradition. Mordax stood alone, his rage useless. The trials were complete. Sarah had passed all three. Against all odds, using human ingenuity and refusal to give up, she had won. Kelvara flew down and landed beside Sarah. "You did it." "You actually did it." Sarah smiled wearily, still holding Ashkar close. "I told you. Humans are stubborn." The old silver dragon raised her voice so everyone could hear. "Sarah Chen has passed the 3 trials. She has proven her strength, her courage, and her wisdom. She is truly Flamekin. Let no one question this again." The majority of the crowd roared approval. Sarah had not just won. She had shown the entire Draketh nation what humans were capable of. And the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. 3 months had passed since the trials. Sarah stood on the observation deck of Kelvara's flagship, watching the stars drift by. So much had changed in such a short time. Everything felt different now. Ashkar had grown noticeably larger. The hatchling was now the size of a small horse, though she still had years of growing ahead of her. She stood beside Sarah, her silver scales gleaming in the starlight. The bond between them had become as natural as breathing. "You are thinking loud thoughts again," Ashkar said, her voice clearer now in Sarah's mind. Sarah smiled. "Sorry, just thinking about how strange life has become. Strange good or strange bad? Strange good, I think." After the trials, everything had happened quickly. The Draketh Council officially recognized Sarah as the first non-Draketh Flamekin in history. The news spread across the galaxy in days. Humanity, the young species everyone had underestimated, had bonded with the proud Draketh. Other species took notice. Trade agreements that had been stuck in negotiations for years suddenly moved forward. Human colonies received offers for technology sharing and cultural exchanges. Diplomatic doors that had been closed were now opening. But it was not just politics that changed. Individual humans across the galaxy reported something unexpected. Other species were approaching them differently, with curiosity instead of dismissal, with respect instead of tolerance. Sarah's personal communicator beeped. She checked it and smiled. Another message from a human somewhere in the galaxy, telling her about their own breakthrough. This one was from a human doctor who had successfully treated a Centauri patient using a combination of human and Centauri medicine. The Centauri had been so grateful they offered to teach the doctor their advanced surgical techniques. "Look at this." Sarah showed the message to Ashkar. "This keeps happening. Humans helping other species and those species helping back, all because we proved we could bridge the gap." "You proved it," Ashkar corrected. "You were the first. I just did what felt right. I think any human would have done the same." Kelvara entered the observation deck. The massive dragon had to duck slightly through the door. "Sarah, we are approaching the meeting point. Are you prepared?" Sarah nodded. Today was important. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session, and Sarah had been invited to speak. They wanted to hear directly from the human who had changed everything. The flagship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the council station. The station was enormous, a city in space where representatives from hundreds of species gathered. Sarah had never been here before. Most humans had not. Earth was still considered a minor player in galactic politics. Until now, Sarah, Ashkar, and Kelvara took a shuttle to the station. As they walked through the corridors toward the council chamber, Sarah noticed other species stopping to stare. Some looked curious. Some looked awed. A few looked hostile. "Ignore them," Kelvara advised. "You have earned your place here." The council chamber was breathtaking. It was a massive sphere with seating arranged in circular tiers. Representatives from dozens of species filled the seats. At the center was a floating platform where speakers stood. The council leader, a being made of pure crystalline energy, addressed the assembly. "We are gathered to discuss the unprecedented bond between the human Sarah Chen and the Draketh hatchling Ashkar. This bond has implications for all of us. Sarah Chen, please approach. Sarah walked to the center platform. Ashkar stayed close beside her. The bond pulsed with mutual support. They were in this together. Sarah Chen, the council leader said, you have accomplished something we thought impossible. You bonded with a species not your own. You passed trials designed to be beyond human capability. Tell us, how did you do it? Sarah took a breath. Every eye in the chamber was on her. I did not do anything special, she began. I saw someone dying and I helped. That is what humans do. We do not calculate if it is logical or safe. We see suffering and we act. But the bond, a reptilian representative hissed. That is not simply helping. That is merging. Becoming family with another species. Yes, Sarah agreed. And is that not what we all need? The galaxy is vast and full of dangers. We are all so different from each other. Different biologies, different cultures, different ways of thinking. But maybe those differences are not weaknesses. Maybe they are strengths. She gestured to Ashkar. I learned things from this bond I never could have learned otherwise. I understand the Draketh now, truly understand them, and Ashkar has learned about humanity. We are better together than we ever were apart. A tall, elegant being with 4 arms stood up. Your words are pretty, human, but this changes the balance of power. If humans can bond with Draketh, what is to stop them from bonding with all of us? From infiltrating our societies? Sarah felt anger flash through her, but she kept her voice calm. We are not trying to infiltrate anything. We are trying to connect, to build bridges. Humans have a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. We believe that community, cooperation, and connection make everyone stronger. The old silver dragon who had blessed Sarah stood from the Draketh section. I have lived for 3,000 years. In that time I have seen species rise and fall. I have seen empires built on conquest and dominance. They all eventually crumbled. But I have never seen what this human has shown us. True selfless compassion across species lines. Perhaps it is time we learn from the humans instead of fearing them. The chamber erupted into debate. Arguments flew back and forth. But Sarah noticed something. More representatives were nodding than shaking their heads. More voices spoke in support than in opposition. Finally, the council leader raised their crystalline hand for silence. A decision must be made. All in favor of formally recognizing the human-Draketh bond and opening channels for further interspecies cooperation programs? Lights appeared around the chamber as representatives voted. Sarah held her breath. The lights were counted. The motion passes, the council leader announced. Furthermore, we extend an invitation to Earth to join the Galactic Council as a full member, not just an observer. Humanity has proven itself worthy. Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. Ashkar nuzzled against her, purring. Through the bond, Sarah felt the hatchling's joy matching her own. When Sarah and Ashkar returned to Kelvara's ship, a message was waiting. It was from Earth, from the human government. They were celebrating. Humanity had just taken its first real step onto the galactic stage. That night, Sarah sat with Ashkar on the same cliff where they had first met, where the hatchling had nearly died of thirst. The double suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. What will you do now? Ashkar asked. Sarah thought about it. She could go back to cargo runs, back to her simple life, but that life seemed impossibly far away now. I think I will stay with you, Sarah said.
Help you grow.
Meet other species, show them what humans are capable of. Maybe help other humans form bonds like ours. You have already changed everything, Ashkar said. Humans are different now. We are different now. Good different, the best different. Sarah smiled and put her arm around the growing dragon. Across the galaxy, she knew other humans were having their own breakthrough moments. A human scientist working with an alien research team, a human teacher sharing Earth's history with curious alien students, a human engineer solving a problem that had stumped others for years. Humanity was no longer just another species trying to survive in a vast galaxy. They were becoming something more. Bridge builders, connectors, friends. And it had all started with one simple act. One human refusing to walk away from a dying child no matter the cost. Sarah looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, more connections were being made. More bridges were being built. More lives were being changed. Ashkar was right. Everything was different now, and it was only the beginning. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was incredible.